Okay, welcome to the City of West Covina's Traffic Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 10th, and the meeting time is 3 p.m. I'm going to do a call to order. My name is Melissa Demirci, and I'm with the Traffic Division.
Jana Robbins with the West Covina Traffic Division.
Michael Ackerman, City Engineer.
Sergeant Brian Daniels, West Covina Police Department Traffic Bureau.
Officer Bob Nyquist, West Covina Police Traffic Bureau.
And with that, I'll move on to item 2, which is just a recap of the previous Traffic Committee items that were approved at the previous Traffic Committee meeting in October. One of them was installation of additional signage and some pavement legends for lane ends consideration on Vincent Avenue. And the second item that was approved at the previous meeting was kind of a parking conditions review on Lakes Drive. And it was approved to add no parking signage along that segment of roadway. And with that, I'll go ahead and move to new Traffic Committee items. And I'm going to start with item A, which is a driveway line of sight review on Lark Ellen Avenue and Walnut Creek Parkway. This request came from the HOA, asking us to take a look at the driveway visibility access when they're pulling out of the driveway onto Lark Ellen Avenue. Vehicles as is are currently parked up very close to the driveway, and it makes it difficult for vehicles to see oncoming traffic. We did do a line of sight analysis and determine line of sight visibility, and we are recommending to install some red curb. Specifically, the recommendations are to install repaint approximately 35 feet of the existing red curb and paint an additional 85 feet of red curb along the east side of Lark Ellen Avenue from Citrus Collections driveway for a total of 120 feet of red curb. This will remove approximately 4 parking spaces. The way that this red curb was determined was based on a line of sight analysis. We're also we're recommending an additional 43 feet of red curb along the east side of Lark Ellen, north of the Citrus Collections driveway, to improve the line of sight for vehicles exiting onto Lark Ellen Avenue. And this will remove approximately 2 parking spaces along the east side of Lark Ellen. And I'll throw it to Jana for additional comments on this item.
So this item, like you said, came from the HOA. So mainly the red curb is in front of the development, the HOA development that requested it. So it's mainly affecting them. But Lark Ellen has I believe a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. So they were having difficulty getting out. So this is what we recommended, and we did contact them, and they were very happy with it. So hopefully that gives them enough room to exit onto Lark Ellen or make left or right out of the driveway. Any other comments?
Have they brought this up to their HOA members prior to this?
Yeah, I think it was the manager of the HOA, so she had gotten complaints from the people who lived there in the units. So then she brought it to the city to see what we could do for it.
All right. So I'm just curious if the whole entire HOA membership is aware that they're going to lose the spaces in front of the, I guess, on Lark Ellen itself. Do you know if there's any designated actual parking spots for visitors inside the complex?
I believe there is, yes.
Okay.
And there's still 3 or 4 places to park, so it's not the whole line.
Right.
So there's still at the end, there's still some parking further away from the driveway.
And a lot of this red curb footage does also include that curb return area as well. And repainting of the existing red curb too.
But yeah, I don't know if she's informed everyone that this is what the city decided. We told her, and she's supposed to inform all the residents.
Okay.
So it may, we have a little delay in when we can actually install it. So, and it has to go to council for final approval. So there is a little leeway time that, they can come back and.
Do you know if, I don't know if you even asked it, but did we do a check to see if there's any traffic collisions in relationship to this specific area?
We always check, and I don't believe there were any at the driveway. Normally, we would put it in the report if there were any.
And we could go back to the HOA and go into a little more detail to make sure the residents,
Before it's actually
before it's
installed.
actually installed.
The only reason why I bring that up is if the red curve is extended, then the traffic bureau is going to get the phone call and be like, hey,
Yes.
nobody ever told us, there was no signs that
Right.
were posted, and if we do any type of enforcement,
They
at
didn't
least
have.
we can say, hey, you know what, we're at the traffic committee meeting, we talked about it, your HOA said that they did make notification to all of its residents, and that way, when I get the parking administrative reviews to fight a citation, I can at least have a reason why I'm denying their contested citation.
Yes, if this one is approved, what we'll do is we'll send an email to the HOA manager and ask her to solicit comments from the people that live here so that it's kind of like a done deal before we take it to council.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I
would
like
be a
it,
good
I think it's a
idea.
great idea, I mean, it'll help with the limited line of sight.
But you know, sometimes people who request things, they don't realize what's going to be taken away.
Right.
Be careful what you wish for type, but
Right.
yeah, I think it's a good idea. So we'll email her to make sure she informs all the residents so that.
Yeah, a copy
we
of the
don't-
notice would be good to have on file as well.
Yes.
Okay, so then I guess the motion, unless there's any other discussion, do you want me to go into what the motion?
Sure.
So, and just for the record, one of the items is comments from audience members. There are no audience members present. So I guess we can kind of word the motion that approve recommendations pending HOA notification of the residents.
To the residents, yeah.
And consensus in a way too, I guess.
I mean, we don't want to get into a match where like one guy doesn't want it and 5 do. So they were the ones that brought it to the city, and this is it's either this is what you get or not.
Yeah, I'm not
You know?
saying that it should become if it becomes a safety issue, which is what it seems like because of the red curve for the line of sight, then obviously for the safety of the residents, it should be installed. I just want to make sure that they're
Oh,
aware
yeah,
that it's being
absolutely,
installed.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll reduce the contested.
Right.
Right, so,
Citations.
no, that sounds good. I second that motion.
Okay. So first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will follow up accordingly and go through the city council agenda accordingly as well. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move to item B. This item is traffic review curve at Nora Avenue and Workman Avenue. We did also contact the resident for this item, and he was pleased with the measures and recommendations that we were making. A resident contacted us to take a look at the existing conditions of the curve where Nora Avenue meets Workman Avenue. And according to the resident, he mentioned that there have been some near misses and that vehicles are parking along the curve. It makes it difficult to see. There's also some existing signage in the area that you can see in the existing conditions of some miles per hour and some warning signs of the curve. We took a look at the existing conditions, did a field review, and based on our recommendations after our review, it was determined that the chevron alignment signs should be installed along the far end of the curve to improve awareness of vehicles approaching the curve. It was also determined that some red curves should be installed at locations where the proposed chevron alignment signs are installed to prevent vehicles from obstructing the visibility of the proposed signage and also to increase the visibility along that curve. Specifically, the items that we're recommending is 1, remove the existing one direction large arrow sign mounted over the object marker and install chevron alignment signs instead in its place along the curve to provide additional emphasis and guidance for the change in horizontal alignment, as well as install chevron alignment for the westbound travel along Workman Avenue on the existing light pole, and remove any of the existing conflicting signage and the sign pole and replace it with a longer sign pole to install chevron alignment, And in the diagrams, it does show specifically what we're referring to, as well as remove the existing damaged RPMs and replace them with new RPMs, and paint and install red curb along the curb where the proposed chevron signs will be. So this in a way will not take away really parking, it's very small amount of red curb in those segments. Is there any discussion item?
No, I think there's a good example with the picture of the car blocking that sign on page.
Yeah, the signs were low, so if a car parked in front of the sign, you couldn't see them.
Right.
And actually, the resident, he just had his car hit on that corner. So that was kind of what brought it up. So he wanted to have something that makes the corner more visible. And you can see some of the pictures in our thing. It's been raining, so it's like, let's replace the little RPMs that are missing, because that's what lights up at night when the headlights shine on it. And then, we had proposed just 5 feet of red curb, just so the car won't park right in front of the chevron sign. And then one of them we're proposing to push it up a little higher. So if a regular car does park in front of it or side of it, you can still see it.
And for the record, there are no audience members for this item. With that, I'll move on to a motion to, do you have a motion to approve the recommended items?
So moved?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and all opposed? All right, this item will go for City Council final consideration and approval. And with that, we're going to move on to item C, and this is a red curb review at Foothill Transit Bus Stop. I'm going to pass this on to Janice, since she's more familiar with the background of this item.
Yeah, Mike is familiar as well. This is at there's a development going in on the Google pictures. You can see it's under construction, but it's built now, isn't it, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so Merrell Gardens. So they had an existing transit stop that was a little closer to the intersection, as you can see up there. But because they put in a dining area that's kind of a little bit is open or whatever, they didn't want the bus stop right next to the dining area, so they wanted to move it further to the south. And so the transit guys called us and asked that if they could extend the red curb, since they're moving their stop further, and we don't want to allow cars to park behind the bus when they pull in. So essentially they'll be able to park 2 buses, and it'll all be red. And we did confirm with Merrell Gardens that they weren't, it's going to take a few parking spaces away, but their development weren't counting on those spots to park. So this one, we agreed with the transit that it would allow the buses to be able to move back into traffic as they travel a lot easier with, we didn't want to park cars right next to where they're trying to get back into traffic. So I think our proposed is to paint an additional, do you have the
Picture, yes.
Yeah. There we go.
About
You can
75
see, yeah,
feet.
it's another 75 feet. So the bus is still on the concrete pad, but their new stop is going to be closer to that the traffic light. So we have about 75 more feet of red. So total, it's going to be 175 feet of red curb total. So, yeah.
Is there any comments or discussion for this item?
No, and with the roadway width, it looks like that the buses aren't going to impede any type of traffic for southbound anyway, so.
No, but they wanted to be able to park 2 buses, come, go. I guess it's, it's a good location for people using the bus stop, so this way it gives them that ability to pull in, pull out without cars parked too close to the bus, with them having to go around the car to get in.
There's no other, for the record, there are no audience members present for this item. And the motion Do I have a motion to approve the recommended items of the additional 75 feet of red curb? Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, so this item passes and will be presented to City Council at a future meeting for final approval. The next item, which is item D, it was a traffic review at Workman Avenue and Homrest Avenue, which does include an uncontrolled crosswalk as well across Workman Avenue. We got this request from a resident to take a look at the existing conditions. We did a field review as well as a traffic evaluation, and we determined that the current signage there is part of the older signage in the CMUTCD. And so as our overall analysis, we are recommending a full intersection upgrade to meet the CMUTCD standards. And this is our typical uncontrolled crosswalk signage. I pulled up the proposed diagram before you. This includes restriping the crosswalks, installation of double-sided pedestrian signage with downward-facing arrows. This is within a school, so it does constitute doing the yellow crosswalks and the school signage, as well as a yield-tiered pedestrian signage with shark teeth approaching the crosswalk, as well as pedestrians ahead signage ahead of the crosswalk to alert vehicles that there could be a potential crossing. So it's not an installation of a new crossing, it's just an upgrade to the existing crossing with additional signage and striping. We also did an accident review as part of analysis, and we determined that there were 5 accidents reported per Tim's and Switters since 2013. And right now, as part of ongoing projects in the city, we are taking a look at the uncontrolled crosswalks citywide and slowly recommending these as they come up.
Yeah, when we see what we call uncontrolled crossings, we want to make sure that the signage is very visible. And when they become the older signs with the crosswalk underneath, they're yellow and they're faded. So we really want to, when we have the ability to here and there, to start upgrading all of those signs to the new neon yellow with the downward arrows. And in some of the older cases, the signs are too far away from the crossing. So that's what we're kind of also working on some of those.
Any other discussion items on this item?
Do these, just the repainting of these crosswalks include the raised pavement markers on the edges of the crosswalk as well, or?
I think in this case, existing, there are no RPMs. So,
I mean, we have to decide as the city, it's something we can discuss, because we want, if we start that, we want it to be uniform.
Right.
So that any of the new ones we put in all have that. And what Mike's talking about is, we found in some of our other cities that just by putting the little RPMs, not the lighted, just the RPMs, every like 2 or 3 feet that outlines the crosswalk on the outside, it really shows up at night when the headlights flash on it.
It's almost like they are lighted.
Yeah,
the
it's almost
reflection
like
off
that.
the headlights goes right back up into the eyes and like, oh, crosswalk.
Yeah, so, it's one of those things that we need to decide, on the city if they want to put them in, because there is a little bit of a cost to put them down, and we don't want, if people run over them all the time, they can
Right,
come
nothing
up.
lasts forever, so it's
So,
a
yeah.
maintenance item.
So it's something we'll look at.
My guess is they're yellow.
What was
On
that?
these, they'd be yellow. On the
Yeah,
white ones, though.
it would match whatever color the crosswalk is.
so we'll do it consistent with what has been done in the other installations.
Very good.
So is the issue more during the daytime or nighttime? And did we look at nighttime for visibility with maybe the lighting in that particular area?
Yeah. If we noticed, we didn't see a big, well,
The signage
Yeah,
is reflective too, that we're installing.
I'm just saying, like, for nighttime hours, I mean, is the intersection poorly lit, or if,
it has.
Well, there is a street light
Yeah,
right
there is
there.
a street light.
Yes. So right at
So-
that corner, there is a
okay.
street light. It is not at the corner of where the crosswalk is, it's
Yeah.
across, but it's still in
Yeah.
that.
Should be able to light the intersection.
Yeah, I mean,
But mainly it's the issue during like school hours. Is that more of the concern of the
Well,
resident?
I think the concern was that it just was outdated signage. So at some point, that signage needs to be upgraded to the CMUTCD standards.
Got it.
And just when we're doing any of our traffic reviews, if we see a signage that is not, it's the old signage, we'll recommend updating it.
I mean, it's something that you might have to just take an eye on too, as the resident was complaining that people don't stop for them in the crosswalk or waiting at the crosswalk, but it's kind of like, how do you get them to stop, really, unless someone's watching them?
Right.
So the only way we can help is to just make sure that everything's visible. And they didn't say, the resident who did the initial complaint wasn't saying that her child, but it was more like they were just walking after hours and no one was stopping for them. And so then when we start looking at it, we said, oh, it's kind of the signs need to be updated. So when it's brought to our attention that there's an issue, we can try and do that. Now, lights, street lights and that, we have to go through Edison, and it takes a big process, maybe a year to get a new street light, because there's all this paperwork you have to go through because they are in control of it. So if we can look at we can also do that process, but
Well, it looks like there is, looking at the pictures here, it does
There's
look
one
like there is a light
Yeah.
in the intersection, so.
I mean, best case, if we had unlimited funds and everything, when we have like grants and stuff, it's like, head scale lighting, all this stuff, it'd be perfect, but. Did we vote on this?
So yeah, I'll go into the motion. So the motion is to approve the recommendations, which is an upgraded signage for the intersection, ahead signage, crosswalk signage, as well as crosswalk striping of the existing crosswalk, no new crosswalk.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so this item passes in the traffic committee, and it'll be presented to city council at a future date for final approval. And now the last item that we have before you is item E, which is a traffic review on Vine Avenue between Hollenbach Street and Citrus Street. And the city received a request from a resident to take a look at potential speeding and some traffic calming measures. We did do a traffic investigation and evaluation to determine what exactly was going on there and what type of traffic calming measures would be most appropriate. This also included a speed radar survey that we did, and we did find that the 85th percentile was traveling higher than the posted speed limit, which was 35 miles per hour. We also determined that in the last 5 years in our absent investigation of most available data, and keep in mind that the 2020 data is provisional data, it's not all the data right now, but we did determine that there were 19 total accidents. So after all of our existing conditions, we made the recommendations to do a few traffic calming measures. The first being the installation of side white stripes on each side of the street between specifically Hollenbach Street to Citrus Street. And what this has shown to do is to visually narrow the lanes, and vehicles do tend to slow down when they see these side stripes. It's not going to impact the existing parking at all. It's going to be actually outside the parking area so that even if cars are parked, you can still see the line. So essentially it's going to have to be like a lane, a lined striped lane. And then the second item that we are recommending is to install 35 mile per hour speed limit signs mid-block with corresponding 35 mile per hour pavement legends, as well as install 35 mile per hour additional pavement legends next to the existing 35 mile per hour signage. And this is just to reinforce the speed limit on Vine Avenue. We did contact the resident about the recommendations, and we can reevaluate if there seems to be future problems still happening along the segment at that time.
And this one we want to put out is that the city did contact PD, and PD did an enforcement effort and did some spot target enforcement, and they did cite some people on Vine. And in our kind of our 20, we did a 24-hour speed survey. So we did notice that there was some speeding, and it usually was kind of like from 3 to 6 or 7 p.m. So it was kind of an odd time, but with this, the new normal now, they say without schools being open, that actually the peaks are moving to later time. So it kind of makes sense. There's less cars on the road, so people tend to speed more when they see less cars. So the resident was grateful that PD was there. You know, you can't have them there all the time, but when they pop in and out and do some enforcement, then maybe some people will start thinking that, hey, you know, it's not a good place to speed.
The other thing that we can do is, we had an issue with our radar trailer. When we deployed it, there was some error, found out that it was out of calibration. We had it sent in for repairs, so that should be up and running fairly quick. We can get that back out there. And then just kind of as a reinforcement to remind people about what their speeds are until some of this is put in place.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great, yes.
Do I have, oh, yes.
Real quickly, on figure 5, it looks like distance to the white line is 7 feet. The travel lanes are 13 feet each. Just may want to consider 8 feet for the parking and 12-foot travel lanes.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And these are schematics, you know, when it comes down to the installation part, we'll work closely who is going to be installing these, but we'll update that. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the recommendations with the 8 feet, 12 feet adjustment for this item?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So this will be presented to City Council for final approval. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting.